Brains. We all have them. We all use them every second of every day. But how do they work? Well, in 1924, a little boy named Hans Berger, not to be confused with hamburger, fell off his horse. Upon examining his son, Hans's father concluded that the brain actually runs on electricity, enough to power a small light bulb. Another scientist then lit up different parts of the brain with electricity to explain their function, finding that he could not explain what 90% of the brain does. His findings were so thoroughly misinterpreted that people today believe we never use more than 10% of our brains, not just when watching pro wrestling, which culminated in an unwatchable action movie featuring Scarlett Johansson. Today, we know that's not true. We use 100% of our brains. Even right now, as I'm doing nothing but narrating this video, I am using most of my brain. Our brains have three main functions: absorb information, interpret information, and create motor behavior. And in this episode of Crash Course, we're going to learn how the different areas of the brain are allowed these to function. In order to know the brain, let's peel it apart, lobe by lobe. Let's start with the cerebral cortex, the new brain, a modern trait that separates us from lower species like mice and aardvark. The occipital lobe is located way in the back of the brain. This is what connects to our eyes. Damage to the lobe can cause visual agnosia, the inability to recognize objects. The parietal lobe is located on the top of the brain. It allows us to distinguish pressure, temperature, and pain. The temporal lobe is located by your temples. It is used for hearing and memory. It houses Wernicke's area, which is in charge of language. When people with damage to this area speak, it's grammatically correct, but it makes no sense. This condition is called aphasia.
Hey man, it's 911. I ain't in here, little Megalomart, man. It don't need blues, man. It's a fire day. And it don't that gum, that come out everywhere, man. I don't know, so need man run out there. I don't know if he did Chuck Mangione gonna be come down here there.
Frontal lobe is located in the front of your brain. This is where personality is controlled, along with planning, judgment, and speech. All the functions that higher order mammals have. This is also where we find Broca's area, which controls speech. Only at this time, when aphasia occurs, speech becomes slow, labored, and not easily understood.
What? Don't worry about it. How did he get the job?
And separating the two halves of the brain is the corpus callosum. In 1981, Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize just for splitting it. Now we've reached the midbrain. All mammals have this part of the brain, even dogs. It controls some of our more primitive functions. Our hypothalamus, that's Greek for below the thalamus, is our pleasure center. It controls aggression, sex, thirst, and hunger. Next, we have the thalamus. That's Greek for above the hypothalamus, which is kind of like the switchboard for the brain, directing all the electrical signals to the appropriate parts of the brain. Then we have the hippopotamus campus, which houses our memories. Besides that is the amygdala, which is associated with fear and aggression. Mutations in this part of the brain have been known to cause bipolar disorder, and all the power behind it comes from the pituitary gland, the master gland. In an experiment with rats, scientists crushed the lateral hypothalamus, causing rats to lose all interest in food. On the other hand, when the ventral medial hypothalamus is crushed, the rats eat so much that they die. Back of the head, we have the little brain. It's called the cerebellum, and that's where balance and coordination is controlled. It allows us to do complex stunts with swords, just like Master John, man of 1,000 blades. But damage would cause us to be clumsy and dance like a white guy. Pardon my French. Then Then we have the old brain. This is where more of our primitive functions are controlled, and they're mostly associated with the autonomic nervous system. An animal like a turtle, incapable of higher order thinking, sorry Michelangelo, has a brain that only consists of these parts. We have the reticular activating system, a finger-like structure that controls our arousal, not in the dirty way. This distinguishes between wakefulness and sleep-wake transitions. So when you're in second hour and you're too tired to function, you can thank your reticular activating system. Then we have the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the spinal cord, which is a bundle of nerves that connects our central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, to your peripheral nervous system, all the rest of the neurons in your body. So let's get real about neurons. They're long cells consisting of a soma, or cell body, the dendrite, that's Greek for tree, and the axons. The axon connects to the dendrite of the next neuron via a gap, 1/250,000th of an inch wide. It's called the synapse. That's Greek for point of contact. The synapse sends neurotransmitters to the next neuron once a threshold is reached, regardless of speed or intensity. This is what's referred to as the all or nothing response. People with diseases like depression have a low amount of these neurotransmitters, causing a decrease in mood and a delayed reaction time. Neurons are stuck in the G sub-zero phase of the cell cycle, meaning that they cannot reproduce. Once you damage a nerve cell, it's gone forever, and you'll never be able to function properly again. In order to study the brain, we have technology, like PET, CAT, MRI, EEG. That's a lot of TLAs, three-letter acronyms. However, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the study of the brain. In 1982, it was discovered that brain grafts, transplanting one part of the brain to another, could treat Parkinson's disease. We also know that fetal tissue is best used for these transplants, but it's been considered too controversial to study in depth, at least until we know how to use adult stem cells. Today, if you were paying attention, you learned about the cerebral cortex, the middle brain, the old brain, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the neuron, and ethics involving brain repair. We'd like to thank our subbable subscribers. Because nobody subscribed to me. If you'd like to sponsor an episode of Crash Course, you can't, because I'm never making a video like this again. This is terrible. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye to the people who hated on me. Goodbye to the people who...
No. Okay. Speak, but it's grammatically, all these functions that higher order mammals have. This is also where we find Broca's area, just for splitting it. Now we've reached the midbrain. All men.
Then we have the old brain. They're most smart.
And they are mostly associated with the autonomic nervous. Oh, sorry. So what? That'd be really funny.
Puppy.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Be able to function properly again. That's it. Robot. In order to study the brain,
Wait.
no. The brain to another could treat Parkinson's disease. We now know that fetal tissue is best used for these In order to study the brain, we have technology. I just read that paragraph. I don't need to read it again. Let's start over.
Go.
To study in depth, at least until we know how to use adult stem cells.
Go. Go.
Today, if you were paying attention, you learned that I cannot make a video for my life, and that I'm really bad at speaking.